All right, so this would be the last and fairly short recording on ecology, and we're going to look at some ecosystems. We're going to look at terrestrial, and we're going to look at aquatic. So most human impacts on terrestrial ecosystems. So what I would like you to do is kind of glance over these charts and realize what's happening in deserts, grasslands, forests, and mountains, and kind of associate why they're being cleared, why the human impact. So deserts, we have large cities, definitely a water issue. We're depleting water. Desert is really slow to recover. The habitat, lots of diversity out there, but it takes a long time for things to change. Grasslands, we're losing, over 90% of our grasslands because great for livestock and for crops. And overgrazing. Forests are being cut down for agriculture. Forests are being used for lumber, and forests are actually even being cut down for housing. And then the mountain areas, we are using it also for agriculture and building dams. And so all of these are have natural capital degradation. So some of the major human impact on marine ecosystems, a little bit different. Is often runoff. We've talked about pollution. We've talked a little bit about beaches are eroding. What we didn't talk about is dams and things are holding back the substrates that used to make it down to the ocean and wash up on the beaches. We are now trucking in sand. We have rising sea levels. We have oceans are becoming more acidic. We have pollution. Yeah, so life is not good for the ocean. One example that the book talks about, we'll talk about, is coral bleaching. What I do want you to know is there is a mutualistic relationship. These things are related to sea jellies. They're polyps that live in these calcium carbonate structures that they secrete. And they live with this organism called zooxanthellae. And these are really photosynthetic. These little tiny things live within the coral. They produce sugars for the coral. And what happens is there's a bleaching is due to when they die. They're dying for a couple of reasons. One is climate change. They like a certain temperature, and the temperature of the ocean is changing. So as the ocean heats up, you're seeing some of that die off. And then the other is ocean acidification. The pH is getting lower, and again, that's due to CO2, carbonic acid being released in the water, and that's also causing bleaching. And so, unfortunately, our coral reefs are being hammered. The Great Barrier Reef, if you want to see it in Australia, see it soon. It's not going to be like it has been for a very long time because of coral bleaching and damage. And then we'll talk about watersheds. That's the drainage basin. So if you look over here on the left, this is the Walnut Valley. This is our San Gabriel River watershed that the Mount Sac is in. And you can see the blue line, and we forget, we don't think of water everywhere because we channel it. And we don't want flooding. So everything's put into canals and channels, which means all those nutrients are not being deposited like they used to. The San Gabriel Valley was a huge agricultural valley. They raised citrus, oranges, lemons, and unfortunately now it's the only thing I guess we're raising now is housing, but we have stopped that nutrient cycle. We've already talked about lakes. Oligotrophic is a term I haven't given you. Oligo means a few, so that's this would be a nice clear oligotrophic lake. Not a lot of nutrients in it. Very, very clear. People like those kinds of lakes. They're beautiful. And then over here on the right is a eutrophic lake. Lots of nutrients, lots of plant growth. For living systems, probably somewhere in between might be a little bit better. All right, and then we have deltas, and that's the river mouths, and that's where water, lakes, ponds, marshes, and bogs kind of another inland wetland. And so deltas are where all the water kind of runs off to, and you have this estuary, which we've talked about. But the problem now is we again are blocking all this stuff. So often, like the Colorado River Delta, there is no water making it to the end. That's all being pulled off. Here, a lot of our water runs down to a place you should go if you can get out is Newport Back Bay. That's a large delta still. One of the largest. Another one would be Camp Pendleton, but you can't get on unless you're a Marine. And then we have Bolsa Chica is another estuary that you could visit. All right, and then the last thing is how have human activities disrupted and degraded freshwater systems, dams and canals, flood control, cities and farms adding pollution, and many inland wetlands have been filled. A lot of Orange County has been filled in for housing. And so I want you to know these four, and that'll be the end of the lectures for this exam. So we'll stop the share, and we will stop recording.